Ansel Adams said landscape photography is the supreme test of the photographer and often the supreme disappointment. You should not be surprised then that sometimes you will leave a shoot feeling underwhelmed by what you have made.
So it's okay, it's not too bad. I haven't got huge high hopes for the image.
But he also said that there is nothing worse than a sharp image of a fuzzy concept. There was nothing fuzzy about the concept of this photograph, and now it's in my portfolio.
I think I've found my next composition. I was hoping to take a few varied images and maybe get away from the water and do something else, but I've just seen a beautiful little backlit scene underneath a tree which I really like, so I think I'm probably going to stop where I am and take this picture, but we'll see how it goes, you never know. Anyway, time for me to stop rambling on and start looking at producing some images. I'll catch you in a minute. The challenge with this photograph really was the composition, trying to get the right camera height so that I could get the tree in the top. Those dark branches coming in sort of create the top frame of the image, but right above it is a very bright patch of sky, and I could have done without that. But I think I've nailed it anyway. The idea with this picture is that underneath those dark trees in the foreground, which you'll be able to see on the screen, in the top of the frame that you can see on the screen, should I say, there's another tree coming out from the left-hand bank. And it was backlit and it was glowing quite nicely, but unfortunately I think I've left it a little bit late and the best of that lighting's gone. But I've attempted to take it anyway, and I'll show you the picture regardless of how it comes out. After all, it's all about sharing our failures and learning, isn't it? And if that is the case, then the learning point from this photograph is I can go back and take another one. But I will share it with you. I was a little bit worried about the foreground underneath the tree and whether or not that would be too messy and too distracting. So I've put the polarizing filter on again, put a neutral density filter on because it's much brighter, so I could smooth out that water and hopefully make that blend in a little bit. Not entirely sure on the crop yet. I've shot it full frame, but I'm kind of thinking maybe it's going to end up as a 16:9 crop. We're taking a fair bit of sensor real estate off the bottom of the frame in the final picture. But we'll see, and you'll be able to see that when I show you the final image. So it's okay. It's not too bad. I haven't got huge high hopes for the image.
When I took this photograph, there was absolutely no chance it was ever going to end up and get into the portfolio. And I think that's to do with the mindset that I had at the time when I took the image. You see, that whole video was about how we perceive failure and how we consider some of our work to be failure when we're comparing it to other people's works. So I suppose I had a slightly negative view of the photographs that I took that day.
So it's okay, it's not too bad. I haven't got huge high hopes for the image.
But when I edited the images, I was able to strengthen the ideas that I carried with me forward from the field. And over time, this image grew in strength for me and had more meaning to it. So when it came to December and putting together the portfolio together for that year, it went immediately in. I could really see the strong message that I was trying to display, and the way that I wanted to get the viewer to look at the photograph came through partly because of the editing. So let's have a look at the editing for this photograph as well. I must say that this is actually a really easy edit. It's made all the much easier by getting things right in the camera when you're out on the field, which, for those of you that follow my channel, you'll already know how important I think it is to get things right in the field so you don't have to do too much at the editing stage. And this image has certainly been helped by that. By having a clear understanding and a clear direction in which to go, it's helped significantly. In the video, I talked about the crop of the image and how I would probably take this to a 16:9, and that's what you can see on the screen here now. So I've already set it up as a standard 16:9 crop, and I've pulled the sides in a little bit as well. The reason I've done that is because I think there's too much on the right hand side here. This sort of tree doesn't really do anything. It's too dominant if I leave it in, and draws your eye to that top corner. So I wanted to lose that. On the left hand side, if I'd left it right out to the corners, that branch at the top for me just takes your eye too much towards that corner, and I just wanted to drop it down a little bit. And the same with this branch here. It gets very messy over on this edge, and just taking that off I think helps. It doesn't add to the image leaving it in. The bottom, quite rightly the same. I wanted to remove some of this shadow area at the bottom, so it sort of mimics what's at the top of the screen. I didn't want the top or bottom to be any more dominant than the other, so I've adjusted that. So that's how the crop looks on this image. The actual adjustment to exposure, highlights, shadows, blacks, whites is something that you normally do a lot of in editing, but in fact in this image I haven't touched the exposure at all. It's exposed exactly as it come out of the camera with no changes. And that's been helped because from what I can remember I used a polarizing filter to cool down some of these highlights. You can just see a tinge of them on top of the water here, and that's absolutely fine, because if I hadn't done that with the polarizing filter, then we would have ended up with a situation where some of this drew your eye down and took it away from what the most important thing is in the image. I actually found the greens to be too powerful in this image as well, so I've toned the greens down a little bit. Only a tiny amount, just -12 on the saturation, so that's all that it took. It's probably imperceptible when I actually switch that saturation on for you, but have a look anyway. Maybe you just see it flick a little bit, but not a lot. The magic in this image is in the masking. So when I call up the masks on here, you'll see that there's 3 different masks that we've done. And the masking is where I'm strengthening the parts of the image that I need to work on to actually draw the viewer in. Now you may remember that when I took the photograph, I was interested in this arch by the branch, the way that the dark bottom and everything sort of frames the centre. And this tree in the middle seems to glow in that wonderful backlighting, and how I wanted you to walk and feel your way into that image. So to strengthen those elements, I've done 3 things. The first thing I've done is I've highlighted the top branches and the top lighting on this tree here. Let me just switch that off again and switch it back on, so you can just see that flick on and off. And I've done that so the top lighting has a little bit more strength in that area, which just lifts those branches out of the shadow. The next thing I needed to do was to strengthen the backlighting and the light sort of airy feel behind this tree. So we've done a similar mask there as well. We've actually lightened the tree slightly. So if I just do that again, look, you can see how your eye is now drawn to look into that tree in the centre. Now that's already working relatively well, but there's one more thing I can do to actually make sure that your eye is drawn in, and that's to turn on the vignette around the outside edge. I was a little bit worried, if you remember, about the bright highlights at the top of this image above the branch and whether or not these areas would draw your eye in. Well, one way of solving that problem was to actually darken them down and do the same with the bottom and the edges as well. So there we have it, the final picture. Let's put the portfolio image up on the screen for you. Making photographs with a strong concept will give you greater satisfaction with your work. It would be great to have you join the channel or come out and join me on a workshop. Get out and enjoy your photography. I'll see you next time.